This is the Seller Process Podcast, where we talk about the best systems, processes, and SOPs for your Amazon business so that you can regain control of your time, build up your team, and scale your e-com empire.
Hello, entrepreneurs. If you're looking to master inventory management because you understand that it is part of the foundation to build a successful e-commerce business, then this episode is for you. Our guest today will dive deep into the best processes they have developed for their seven-figure business to effectively stay in control of inventory and never run out of stock. For the third time in this podcast, I'm joined by David Lang and Ryan Sherrard. David is an airline pilot, while Ryan has a background in molecular biology. Despite having no previous experience in e-commerce, they were able to scale their business to seven figures in less than 2 years. They recently sold their business for several $million, and now they aim to help others scale their own businesses. Together, they co-founded Davan Strategic and offer coaching and strategic planning for other sellers. They also host the Davan Exchange, a free regular meetup for members of the Facebook group. Hey guys, how are you doing? Good to see you again.
Hey, Gianmarco, thanks for the intro. Good as always.
Yeah, it's nice.
Awesome.
It's nice to be back on the show.
Also, you guys are my favorite spreadsheet nerds, as you know.
We take that honor to heart. We love it. We love spreadsheets.
That's a badge that you guys really earned. And so you recently come up with your newest crazy spreadsheet that it's called Stock Flow, right? So which is what I wanted to discuss with you guys, because I know your story. I know it helped you so much with doing the building your brand and having the great exit you guys had. So let's dive into the Stock Flow, this spreadsheet, how you guys came up with that, how are you using it? And by the way, for everyone listening, you'll guys be able to access this spreadsheet and use their systems and processes. So stay tuned to this conversation, because David and Ryan will always drop some value bombs and very interesting tips for us to improve our business. So guys, let us know how do you use this spreadsheet? What are the SOPs behind that, and how do you use it to optimize inventory?
Yeah, we're glad to, we're happy to give you a quick overview. So just a quick background about the sheet. So we actually created one very similar for our own business. It was a custom sheet, very specific to our brand. We actually called it the Life Force, because it was the life force of our business. We kept track of all the numbers in one place. We made sure we didn't run out of stock, that we'd have enough cash flow on hand. And after we exited our business, a lot of people were asking us, hey, any chance you can help build a sheet like that for us? And to be honest, to do a custom sheet for every single person is just way too time consuming, and it's way too difficult, too many variables. So Ryan and I,
or at least that's what we thought.
That's what we thought. And then we literally did like a brainstorming session 3 days straight of like, can we build a sheet that essentially works for everyone? And that's where we came up with Stock Flow. And the reason why we called it the Stock Flow is because we see it as equally as important as a cash flow for your business, because the stock drives the cash. Right? You can't make money if you don't have stock. So our Stock Flow, the main intent is to make sure that we get a quick overview of where's all of our stock in the supply chain. And that's one of those features that people asked us for early on. It's like, look, it becomes the bigger you get, the bigger your problems get. And it's hard to stay on top of everything. And we wanted to have one place where we can put all of our information in to really make sure we know, like, okay, this many units are in production, this many units are maybe at a 3PL, this many units are at Amazon, keep track of all of that, and then tie it into a sales forecast looking forward and saying, well, is that going to be enough? And have something that updates on a weekly basis. So that is a very quick overview of what our Stock Flow does. It pulls data from Amazon. So we fully automated the thing. It's a semi-automatic approach. You pull 2 reports, we guide you through the entire process. It uploads the information into the spreadsheet, and then the magic happens. It provides all of that information to you, very easy to digest, and really breaks down where the inventory is.
Okay, that's great. So what are some of the procedures that you use? Like do you have any like recurring task on a daily basis or a weekly basis or monthly basis to make sure that, this tool is helping you? And in general, how can people see the recurring procedures that should happen when we do inventory management the right way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would every Monday morning open up the stock flow or at the Life Force when we were using it. And we would essentially ask the question, how many units do we need to send into Amazon today to cover the next 60 days of sales? And this is a question that, can be quite daunting for a lot of sellers. They're looking at numbers and trying to calculate it, but we had built this sheet that just told you point blank, here's how many units you need to send to Amazon based on your own forecast. And it made it so simple. We would just take those numbers, create shipping plans, and we'd be done. That was, 10 minutes on Monday morning. And we were sure to cover the inventory and the stock for the next 60 days. So that regular thing, takes people so much time. And we were able to just get it done Monday morning, then be like, okay, what's next? But I think aside from just looking at 60 days, we could also look at short-term and long-term solutions. I know Dave wants to touch on that.
Yeah, so I think the one hard thing about Amazon is that they'll tell you these are how many units you have at FBA. But units at FBA don't equal units at FBA. They really get split up into different parts. So, I mean, a lot of people know this if you dive in a bit deeper. You will have units that are available for sale. So this is like the ones that have the Prime badge, quick shipping, the customer can order it and receive it within 24 or 48 hours. But not all the units are always available. Some of the units that you have at FBA will actually get transferred from, let's say, East Coast to West Coast. Those will be considered FC transfer. Some are in FC processing, right? So they might still be, on the, they're doing an inspection maybe on they're pulled aside. Yeah. It's a customer return maybe that's now being processed to be returned or evaluated. So you have the FC processing. And then you also have the shipments that you've created inbound to Amazon. So Amazon knows that shipments are coming in. They consider them at FBA, but they haven't even been received yet. They're still inbound. Maybe you just created a shipping plan, so they think they're at FBA. And what's very important is to get very granular about it and to really look at, okay, where are my units and how long will those units last? And the reason why we started doing that was because of our own business, right? We would try to make decisions based on how many units we have at FBA, and then run PPC hot, but realize, oh no, we don't have enough units available to cover it. So then we would actually tie in our PPC strategy based on how many units we have available. Yeah. And that's why we kind of built that sheet. And one of the SOPs that we would do then the Monday mornings is say, okay, we put the forecast to 60 days to stay in stock at Amazon, but let's actually look at the next 2 weeks. So we would change just a quick cell in the Excel sheet to 14 days forecast, and then look at the available units. So it's a very quick action to do. And then our sheet will actually highlight in red the SKUs that you don't have enough available within the next 14 days. And then we would evaluate those on an individual basis and say, okay, well, where are those units then? And if they're in, if they're still in a inbound shipping and we know, okay, they're not even close to being available, then we might change our PPC strategy and slow down PPC a bit, put tighter budgets on it. We maybe even, if we're already running very little PPC, raise the price a little bit to try to slow down. And all of this really optimize your top end and your bottom end. You're making more money.
Yeah. And just to touch on like how many sellers out there just, you create a shipment and you're like, whew, done. But you got to follow that shipment and it could get delayed. You always have to be looking, you sent in units, but how many are available? Like it could take days or even weeks for those to trickle in to become available. So you always have to be looking at that available number and tie it into your PPC and your overall strategy until those units you just sent in make it to the listing as available.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really a really smart approach. I love it, and I think it also highlights the thing of in the process that you need to account for some buffer time for allowing FBA to check in products, because as you said, products at FBA are not really at FBA until they are in the available bucket. But if they're in the FC processing and so on, obviously you will lose your Prime badge and
what's unfair, Gianmarco, if I can interrupt, the customer can still buy it, but the shipping time is like 10 days out. So the customer will be like, you can buy it, but long shipping time. So what it actually happens is you may not notice because you're still getting orders that day. So if you're only looking at orders, and a lot of people we know, they just check how many sales did I get today. And we always start at the bottom. We say, how much inventory do we have? Because that'll relate to sales. And then the problem is your conversion goes down. That hurts your unit session percentage, which hurts your ranking, which hurts everything. So I think it's important. Don't just look at how many sales you got. Really make sure to know, what is the shipping time on my listing? And that depends on what is your available inventory.
Yeah, exactly. So that's smart, guys. Look at the available inventory, not just the inventory overall, because you don't want to run out of stock, obviously, but you also don't want to run out of available inventory because of that problem that David just mentioned. Yeah, so definitely see that with this different perspective. And I'm actually curious to ask about what a number that you mentioned before, like you said, 60. You were planning for 60 days, right? How did you come up with that number? And is there any particular reason for that, and how people can come up with their own number?
I think that's just, if I'm getting technical, the only number I've ever seen mentioned in Amazon documentation is actually 42. I remember reading an help article where Amazon's like, we prefer that you keep 42 days of stock, so essentially 6 weeks. We like to go a little bit longer and say not 42 days, but generally 60 days. Because it just accounts, it gives you a little bit more buffer in case a shipment does get delayed, or in case things take a little bit longer to spread across the fulfillment network once Amazon receives it. So we don't.
Or if your sales are better than expected.
Or exactly. If your sales pick up, you're like, phew, I have a little bit of buffer stock in there. And Amazon, we haven't really seen them penalized for 60 days. If you start getting close to having 90 days, 100 days, 120 days of stock in Amazon, that's where you could potentially see, your sell-through rates start to suffer, your IPI scores start to suffer as a result of that. So we always like to keep it 60, just as a kind of a gut feeling for us.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. I think also obviously depends on, the supply chain timing, right? So
and that's something that we learned just from the history of our brand. So the first couple of shipments, we would just create our MOQ of, let's say, 1,000 units and be like, all right, just ship it to Amazon, right? Before we started to master more of this inventory flow. And we see a lot of people making that mistake, is that they don't actually calculate the cost of inventory at different locations. And there's different locations in your supply chain, right? So one strategy we see some advanced sellers do, I know Gianmarco, you do this as well, right? Is like you manufacture the products. Hey, just negotiate with your supplier to maybe store it there for free. They have a warehouse. Ask them, hey, any chance you can store it there? A couple things to obviously know to make sure is that it's not too humid, that they're palletized, so it's not sitting on the warehouse floor. There's a couple aspects to consider.
Can we just emphasize that again? Your supplier will often store your products for free.
Right? Just ask. Honestly, just ask, right? If they have the space. And if not, a 3PL cost in the States, honestly, in the 3PL costs normally, and if you don't have one, honestly, reach out to us. We have Anthony, he's great. We love him, right? And he still has some room. And what happens is the 3PL, their fees are a third of Amazon fees. And this is during the regular season, not Q4. Q4, it's like 1/9. 10% of the cost. It's insane. So a lot of people don't calculate what is the cost of the inventory. And that's something that we always like to do as well, is figure out how much does my inventory cost depending on where it is in my supply chain, and then base our strategy on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's even more critical now in 2023, 2022, when Amazon started to raise their fees. Yeah. And so now a lot of sellers are, suffering with lower profitability. It's kind of, the main topic, for the past 6 to 12 months, right?
And Amazon always words it like, oh, we've done so well to save you so much money, so now we're going to increase fees. They always make you feel like they're doing it for the right reasons. And
it's called gaslighting.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really, it should be part of your inventory strategy, guys, to make sure that you understand, the costs of all the fulfillment of all the places in your supply chain, and act smart with that. As Ryan said, asking your suppliers, for example, to store your products for free, or sending directly to Amazon for a certain amount, and then store it to a 3PL for the buffer inventory. So there's different strategy. Also now there is AWD that could help you. Be careful with that. It's a bit slow at receiving. We had experiences, but it does work when they actually receive the product. So keep in mind all of these options that you have to really have a solid strategy for your inventory management. So my next question for you guys is that in order, obviously, to calculate this, the amount of inventory to send in the in FBA and all the other places in our supply chain, we need to accurately know our sales velocity, right? So, what is your take into how we should estimate that accurately? What how do you guys do that?
Oh man, so this I love this question because I'm going to start with something I've seen people do, which I think is wrong. So let's say you're an experienced seller and you've been selling for a while. So this is especially for the people that haven't been selling for a while. They look at what did I do last year and then base it on a percentage above or below. Amazon is way too volatile for that, right? And that's, in my opinion, living with tunnel vision and pretending that you're protected from outside impact on your business. So like new competitors coming in, or, you know, search volume halved, or, you know, a recession. So instead of just saying, hey, last year we sold 10,000 units in Q4, so this year we're going to send in 12,000 units, or you know what, it's slightly lower, we're going to send in 8,000 units. Looking at it like that, in my opinion, is the biggest mistake you can make, because it's not a live representation of the current market.
Right.
So I think that Amazon really relies on, or your sales on Amazon really rely heavily and most heavily on your organic ranking.
Yeah.
For
Absolutely.
different keywords.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the strategy that we've done is to take a live look at what is your real-time baseline. And baseline we define as what is your average sales window on like or average sales on a random Tuesday. There's no peak, there's no coupons being run, absolutely nothing's happening. It's just what's your random sales day. And then that obviously averaged out over a longer period of time. Do you want to explain more how we calculate the baseline?
Yeah. So to get a bit more technical, like, you know, we want to ask about, based on the past, say, 21 days that you've been selling, what is your median sales day? So, you know, by taking the median, we're blocking out peaks or troughs. And also, if you had a coupon running, or if there was a holiday, we also block out those numbers, because we don't want, you know, inflated numbers. We want, like Dave said, on a normal given day in the last 21 days, how many units did your SKU sell? And that's the number that we're going after. And because we're only taking the trailing 21 days, it's dynamic. You know, if your organic rank starts to increase and your sales start to pick up as a result of that, you're going to see your baseline increase as a result. Like Dave said, you don't want to be looking at last year's numbers, because you had completely different organic ranks. The competitor landscape, the marketplace, your niche looked completely different last year. So that's why we always look at just a trailing number of days, and we take the median value. And then we take that baseline and we project it forward using, you know, our stock flow sheet allows you to build your own forecast and say, like, look, there are holidays coming up. We have Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween, whatever. And you can forecast your peaks and essentially ride that baseline over those peaks. And it will tell you how many units you can expect to sell over those holidays, so that you can take those numbers and go to your supplier and order, you know, accurate numbers, or at least numbers that have some data behind them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now imagine having to do that for each of your individual products. It is so time consuming. And that's why when Ryan and I, being the spreadsheet nerds, we said, look, we got to build a tool that allows us to do this quickly, that's up to date live. So every time we update the sheet, we have the current baseline, and our sheet can handle 1,000 SKUs, right? So we can look at 1,000 SKUs with one quick overview, and it's always up to date with the current baseline. And then we get the most accurate projections moving forward.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about peaks and holidays, because I know you are big into that. You know, you
Zero experience.
Exactly. So especially for seasonal products, for example, I mean, it's obviously it's a big part of the planning, right? A little bit less so for products that are not seasonal. They sell a set amount throughout the year, but for those other products, you might have be extra careful. So
Yes.
how do you approach this part of the business, like planning for peak season or holidays or festivals?
Right.
I know you have like a very in-depth process for that.
Yeah, and I mean it's tough, man. I'm not gonna lie, but if you can nail your numbers, you can be really successful with, in the gifting niche. If you can really forecast your peaks accurately, and like I said, it's tough. If you've never sold through a peak or a holiday before, how do you know how many units you can expect to sell? You're like, if you normally sell 10 a day, are over a holiday like say Mother's Day, are you going to sell 100 a day? Are you going to sell 500 a day, 1,000, 10,000?
How big does it get?
How high does it go? These peaks are just, they can be astronomical. And if you've never sold through them, you're like, you don't know your numbers. So what we would do is we would use tools like Helium 10, and we would actually pull and scrape data from our competitors. So these would be well-established competitors in the niche that have sold through Mother's Day, say, last year. So we would look at their data from last Mother's Day and say, okay, how many did they normally sell in a day? Maybe they sold 100. And then during the Mother's Day peak, maybe they ramped up and sold 5,000.
On their biggest day. Right?
On their biggest day. So we know on their biggest day, they're doing 50x their baseline. And you can then take those two data points and essentially back calculate how many units you can expect to sell. If you have a baseline of 10, you can then expect to sell 500 on the peak. Of course, there's a ramp up and a drop off after the holiday. We take all that into consideration in the stock flow sheet. We build you a nice curve that shows you the forecast over the holiday, but that's essentially how we forecasted all of our holidays. And some of them were like scarily accurate. We were able to nail a lot of these peaks just by looking at competitor data.
Yeah, because what we're looking at is not essentially their sales. We're looking at essentially what is the market doing, right? So it doesn't mean that our baseline is always going to jump up to 100. They may be better established, but if they're at 100 doing, 5,000 on the biggest day, well, if we're at 10, we're going to 500.
Yeah.
Did I do the math correct?
I think so.
5,000. Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean. Our Excel sheet does the math for you.
And I mean, it's so important. Sorry, Dave. It's so important to know your numbers, because you don't want to. You can't. If you send in too few units, you're going to go out of stock during the easiest days to sell out of the year, when ACOS is great, tacos is low, conversion is high. But if you send in too many, the holiday is going to be over, and there's no holiday afterwards. So you're going to be left with a ton of overage at Amazon, and you're like, what do we do with all these units? So you really need to nail your numbers and be confident with the numbers that you're going to send in heading into a big holiday.
Yeah, and to give some content to the people that don't know our story. So like we did in 5 days, we hit $1 million revenue, right? In a week, our biggest week finished, I think, at 1.2 million. And our biggest day was $250,000 in 1 day, right? And I mean, the margins like Ryan was saying, on the biggest day, your margins are amazing, because you can literally almost just turn off PPC. You're riding such a wave. It's a tsunami at that point, which is really fun. And just one final note. So even though our stock flow, we kind of build it for these seasonal products with big peaks, we've in the meantime, worked with a lot of people, including Amy Weiss, right? So we've been working on her brand with her for a bit, to kind of turn things around and, put some, some of our thinking behind it, to get a fresh perspective. And it's not seasonal products, right? So there's no massive peaks. But the insights that a stock flow sheet can give you, let's say, at a quick glance, and the idea for us is always like, we want to do the heavy lifting once. We want to build a sheet that's really hard to do once, but then benefit from it in our business for the next 6, 7, 8 months, right? It has to be quick after that, because that's how we can put our resources into something else and to scale our business. So helping out these other brands, right? We've saved them thousands of dollars, literally. And I'm not exaggerating this, thousands of dollars with simple actions like, hey, look, you're running low on available units. Your pipeline says it's not going to arrive until the end of February. We're the beginning of February. You're going to run out of stock. Raise your price $3 per unit. You have 300 units left. That's an easy, $900 pure profit on top. And, reduce your PPC or turn it off completely. Your ranking's fine. So literally, we've saved them thousands of dollars, even though it wasn't seasonal.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Yeah, speaking about that, let's talk about the mistakes that people make. Since you have seen so many other examples, like tell us what do you see working with other people? What are the main mistakes that people make in inventory management?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about inventory levels and going in and out of stock, but something we're forgetting with inventory is also, the actual carton sizes and the packaging. This is also part of your inventory and your supply chain thought process. So we absolutely loved, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but to optimize, carton sizes to make sure that they fit perfectly on a pallet, 24 by 20 by 72 inches high, or sorry, 40 by 48 by 72, right? And then we did packaging to make sure that, your shape, if you could, sometimes you can just shave half an inch off your packaging and it will knock you down a product size tier into the lower levels that you're paying a lower FBA fulfillment fee. So we love to dive into these optimizations of cartons and packaging size, which, seems tedious, but it can save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in the long run.
And it's a job that you kind of do once. And then when you have thousands of units, because Amazon, it's a beast, right? If you hit it, you're selling thousands. I know, Gianmarco, you too, you're selling thousands of units. And if you're shaving off literally 27 cents because you dropped one tier in packaging size per unit, that's big real-time savings. That's straight to your pocket. So like Ryan said, that's one mistake, is that they don't look at it. Inventory is one thing, but what am I storing? Well, I'm storing a package. I'm storing a carton. Let's see if I can just shrink it a little bit, maybe. So that's one thing, because people always try to, save money on their suppliers, and they put pressure on, hey, can you make it cheaper? But hey, then you're losing quality. Just ask them to make it smaller. Then there's no quality loss, but you're saving the same amount of money, and they're willing to help. So that's one thing. Another one is really, and I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, is knowing which costs are associated to which part of the supply chain, right? And there's so much automation to do there. You don't need, and this is very important actually, because it was 6 months ago, Amazon changed it. You used to pay long-term storage fees if it was over 360 days. Like if it was more than a year at Amazon, at FBA, you would pay these long-term storage fees, right? Like for old inventory. They just reduced it to 270 days. Well, I mean, it's been like 6 months now.
I actually think they're both in place, so that if you have inventory that's older than 270 days, it's called now aged inventory. And if you go over the 365, then it's long-term. So
it's like a double fee, right?
What are they going to do now? They're like, if you have inventory that's been in there for longer than 30 days, like you just feel the
pressure,
the pressure coming. Yeah, they keep lowering the bar.
And then that's the third mistake we see people do, is like they feel like, okay, I sent my units into inventory to Amazon, it's out of my hands, right? But I honestly think inventory is one of those things that you have control over in your business, right? And we even were scared at one point to do a removal order until we ran the numbers, and we said, okay, one of the peaks, one of our SKUs, we didn't hit the wave as hard as we thought we would. And then said, how much would it cost to remove it? And then we said, if we don't remove it, how much is it going to cost to store it on Amazon versus our 3PL? And then you just do a quick cost analysis, and you see that a removal order is actually cheaper. Yeah. And if it's cheaper, why not do it?
We had to pull the trigger on a removal order, and it felt painful, because it's like we overestimated our sales for one SKU. It happens, but we were like, do we have to do a removal order? How much does that cost? And in the end, it was pretty painless, and it ended up saving us a lot, because we got those units out of inventory back to our stateside 3PL, where the storage was much cheaper. And
it protected your IPI, you know what I mean? Like you're in control of the inventory again, so it's good. And when we started the podcast, we were talking about like, why do we call it stock flow? It's because we think it's just as important as your cash flow. And I feel like cash flow, once you make a business decision, then your cash flow, it's almost out of your hands, right? Because you decided to pay that price for a product, or you sign up with that. And then your cash flow depends on how much money are you now getting in, which is part of your sales. But I find there's very little fine tuning you can do. But on your stock flow, on your inventory, the decisions you can make as a business owner have real consequences on your cash flow, because you can save so much money. So don't forget that they're tied in together. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah. I'll throw in one final quick point too, and that's to always have PPC in mind when you're looking at your inventory. The two are intricately tied, as well as organic rank, right? But if you see that you have 0 units available, but you've sent in maybe 500, and we've talked about this, those 500 units are going to take some time to trickle into Amazon. If you have 0 available right now, though, your shipping time is going to be, terrible. Why are you driving PPC traffic to that listing? Like, it's important to go in and tune down or even turn off PPC until units come in. So always be looking at the two, one eye on PPC, one eye on inventory levels.
Awesome. Yeah. Totally agree 100% on all this. Yeah. Great insights, guys. We're almost, good with time. Let's have, I have one last question for you guys. It's our signature question, because at the seller process, we're all about efficiency, right? So my last question for you is, what is the best advice to achieve more with less when it comes to managing inventory effectively?
Okay, cool. So one thing I think this is in general for any business. Spend your time wisely, setting it up right, and it'll save you money or time in the long run. So for example, really take your time. For example, let's just take our stock flow sheet, for example. Take your time to really say, I'm going to build smart forecast trends. I'm going to build them. I'm going to think about them. And it's going to take me an afternoon. I'm really going to sit down and I want to do this right. I'm going to look at my competitors. I'm going to look at the market. I'm going to set it up right once. And I invest all the time up front. And then it comes down to literally 10 minutes every Monday and you're done.
Totally agree. I think before we started recording here, I was telling Dave, sometimes inventory can feel like, your bank account or stepping on the scale. Dave said it's like, it's that thing that you kind of dread to do. You kind of hover over, am I going to check my online banking? Oh, wait, I'll put it off till next week. I don't want to see those numbers, but you have to be on top of your inventory if you want to optimize it and take advantage of all the pointers and tips that we've given you today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, guys, my bread and butter, as you know, like investing in systems, right? Yeah. So that's really important. Maybe you will invest an afternoon or a day or a week on something, but then it's gonna pay off, big
Inventory's
time.
Fun, guys. Just do
it. But Gianmarco, like it seems so basic to us. Honestly, that's why we've been on this podcast so much. We absolutely love the way you think and the process, and because we're the same. But how many people don't do that? How many people will, take out their pen and pencils and sit down, and then calculate how much inventory do I need? And they, and then they forget that there's some in production. And our sheets, one thing that we didn't talk about is we actually set our date range as well. So we have the 14-day check for available. We have our 60-day check to see how much do we send to Amazon for the next 60 days. But then we also have our 180-day check to say, how many do we have to produce, right? And it's all done with the same sheet using the same numbers. Your live baseline that's moving constantly, the peaks that you've created to forecast that. And then you're able to just really say, okay, then I'm going to produce this many, and I'm going to move it into check. And you're just moving the inventory on one sheet. It's, guys, try it out. So that's our offer. It's a 14-day absolutely free trial, nothing to lose. We do limit it to 5 SKUs only for the free trial, right? And then you can easily unlock it for the full version, depending on how many SKUs you have and what you need. And like I said, the entire sheet can handle up to 1,000 SKUs. And even the aggregator that bought our brand has used this sheet, which is fun seeing them use it for all the brands that they're doing. Amy Weiss, she absolutely loves this sheet. It really helped her get on top of her stock flow. So yeah, try it out. It's fun.
Awesome. So you guys know now that Dave and Ryan love inventory management. So you can reach out to them in case you want, like you would like some help. You can get also the inventory, the stock flow spreadsheet that we've been talking about. You will find the link in the show notes or in the description of the YouTube video. Just share with us what is your contacts, where can people find you, so that in case they would like to reach out to you personally.
For sure. So we have a website, Davan Strategic. So Davan is for Dave and Ryan, right?
Yeah,
so,
Ryan, the other way around, Rivid just didn't sound good. It was too close to like COVID and other diseases.
Right. It does sound like a disease. So yeah. We stuck with Davan. So davanstrategic.com. But where we're a bit more active is our Facebook group, right? So it's Davan Group, I believe. Yeah. But we can also share it with you. So davan.group, that's our Facebook group. It's really fun. And as you said, we also have that like free exchange where we try to jump on at least once a month, depending how busy we are, to be honest, because we have so many other things going on. It's fun. And then we'll just do like a free chat with people. It's kind of cool.
And Gianmarco, we got to give you credit where credit's due, man. Like we had the Life Force for our own business. And I think you were the first person to come to us and say like, could you build this for me? Yeah. And we're like, hold my beer, And I think we told you, yeah, we'll have it to you by the end of the week. But then we went down a rabbit hole, and that's what eventually became the stock flow. And so that took us literally months to build, but we're so proud of the outcome. So yeah, you had a piece of this story, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries. I will be happy with just 20% of the profits.
We'll give you 20% of the free trial that we have.
Okay, that's cool. Love it. All right. So thank you guys again for being in this podcast. podcast. For those listening, we are actually working together now more closely. So you will hopefully see us more and more in this podcast. We will stay tuned because we will, share with you some like really, really big projects.
Big news.
Big news coming. So stay tuned in this podcast. So guys, thank you again for joining the podcast. We'll see you probably again soon. And for those listening, guys, remember the key to success is to emulate the best. So put in practice the advice that Dave and Ryan just shared, and remember to go download the spreadsheet that is complimentary for this podcast. You will find it in the show notes or in the YouTube video description. So make sure you download it and make a good use of it. And so guys, stay productive, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Gianmarco.
Thanks.
Hey entrepreneurs, I hope you enjoyed the episode and learned something from the interview. If you're serious about creating systems for your business, automating processes and building up your team so that you can transfer the tedious daily tasks in order to focus on more high-level strategic tasks and work on your business and not in your business, I've created a guide for Amazon sellers named Capturing Systems and Creating SOPs that you can find at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook, where you will learn how to leverage systems and SOPs in your Amazon business so that you can accomplish more by working less, optimize your time, automate and delegate tasks, and reap the benefits of being a true business owner and not simply an operator in your own business. Go download the ebook at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook and start implementing all the tips and insights that I share with you. And leave us a review or a comment to let us know how the content we are sharing here is making an impact in your business. And have a productive week.